Hi, I'm Adam in Wales and this is my board gaming vlog, and over the next few episodes we're going to be exploring the history of the Spiel des Jahres award and all the different games that have come under that banner, whether they're nominations or recommendations, ultimately winners. And today I'm going to be looking at games that were overlooked by the Spiel des Jahres jury over recent years or even further into the past. So I'm looking at my top 10 games that I think would have fulfilled the criteria of this specific award, but didn't even receive a recommendation, let alone a nomination or win the award. So what is the Spiel des Jahres? Well, it's the most prestigious gaming award in the world. It's based in Germany. They release currently 3 different awards. One is for essentially a family game, a family style game. One is for a connoisseur's game, an expert's game, so essentially a gamer's game. And then the third award is for children's games. Sheriff of Nottingham is an unusual case. It hasn't actually been released yet in Germany. Well, in fact, it's released in 2016, so it won't be eligible for the Spiel des Jahres award until next year. The reason that I've put it on the list is because Sheriff of Nottingham has had several different previous versions. Most notably, there's a version called Hart und der Grenze. I don't know how to pronounce that, close to the border it means, and this one was actually recommended by the Spiel des Jahres jury back in 2006, so whether Sheriff of Nottingham has done enough to distinguish itself from its predecessor, I don't know. Certainly it's a good enough game to win the award, it's the right sort of weight to win the award, and Arcane Wonders and Dice Tower Essentials have done some stellar artwork and production on this game. It's not unheard of for a game to win the award that has had a previous version. Recently, the Connoisseur's Choice was given to a game called Broom Service, and that was a reworking of a previous game, Witch's Brew, but that didn't stop it winning the award. Sheriff of Nottingham is actually based on a 1950s game called Contraband. So it's been around for a long time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this game. So far, not many awards for Sheriff of Nottingham, although it's made a big impact in the gaming world. I see it being played a lot, it's extremely popular, it's selling well, and so far it's only really been recognised by the Board Games Australia Award, which is a slightly lesser known award, but throughout this video I want to talk about these other awards that go on. So Board Games Australia offer an award to the best international game from the Australian perspective, the best game overall and the best children's game. So in this case this has won the best international game in 2015. Can it go on to win a Spiel des Jahres? I don't know. We'll find out next year. In Sheriff of Nottingham, players take turns playing as the sheriff. Each other player selects cards from the deck and tries to maneuver sets of cards from their hands into their scoring piles. Easy enough to do when they're low-scoring apples or chickens, but more difficult to go unnoticed if the card's an illegal item or contraband. Players place their cards into a small pouch and declare its contents either truthfully or falsely to the sheriff. The sheriff in turn can let their pouch go unchecked or accuse them of deception and open the pouch, and players are encouraged to bribe the sheriff to make this decision a little easier for him. If the sheriff is wrong, then he pays the player gold. If he's correct, then the player pays him a fine. After several rounds of bluffing and double bluffing, players score their goods, and the highest score is the winner of the game. Number 9 on my list is a game which is by the same designer as Carcassonne, which is one of the real staples of the modern board gaming era. So this is a game by Klaus-Jürgen Reder. Again, I don't know whether I've pronounced that correctly, but it's The Downfall of Pompeii. Now this game is an excellent tile laying game. It's simple, it's got a lot going for it, and yet it flew under the radar a little bit. You know, it's hung around for a few years. You still find it in print. It comes back in new editions and this sort of thing. But it's not heavy on the awards. In fact, the only award that I've got written down on my sheet here of any substantial sort of note is 2006, it won the Games Magazine Award, the Family Award for that. Now, Games Magazine is a US publication that chooses games each year, so it is one of the more significant awards, but whether that really has any major impact in terms of sales, I don't know. But Downfall of Pompeii seems to have been overlooked. Downfall of Pompeii is a game of two halves. In the first half of the game, players take turns playing cards from their hands and placing citizens into buildings in the city of Pompeii. The different locations open up different strategic options for placement, and on occasion players are given the opportunity to sacrifice their opponent's citizens to the rumbling volcano, dropping them into the cardboard crater. At the midpoint of the game, the volcano erupts, and the experience becomes an aggressive game of drawing lava tiles from a bag, placing them onto the board in the most devastating positions for your opponents, who are simultaneously trying to find a clear route out of the city gates for their own citizens. At the end of the game, the player with the most surviving citizens wins. The third game on my list, and number 8, is Goblet by Blue Orange. Now, Goblet is an abstract strategy game, and these have tended to do extremely well in the Spiel des Jahres award in the past, with games like Quarto and Quarador, and practically every game in the GIF series getting some sort of nod or recognition, either a recommendation or a nomination. So it's odd to see that Goblet, which fits very comfortably into those categories of games, specifically the Gigamic wooden series, hasn't actually been recommended or nominated for any such award, even though this game has sold, I believe it's well over 1 million copies by now, and it was the game that founded the company Blue Orange, which has gone on to be a major force in this sort of family game market. So it's an oddity that Goblet didn't get an award, and in fact hasn't won many awards, apart from, as far as I can tell, toy awards, which I was sort of looking at for the first time today when thinking about this video. So Goblet has won awards like the Oppenheim Toy Portfolio and the Parents' Choice Award, which are awards that are given to toys. So that's a whole other category that we could be looking at. But no Spiel des Jahres for Goblet. Goblet is a game similar to tic-tac-toe, whereby players attempt to form a row of 4 cups of their own colour. The twist in the game is that the larger cups can move to a position where they cover smaller cups, introducing a new layer of strategy and memory to the classic game. Game number 7 is Mysterium. So Mysterium this was quite a big hit when it came out. Quite a lot of buzz around this game. It hung around for a while in its Ukrainian and Polish versions. Tajemnicze Domostwo, I don't know, I had that version sitting on my shelf for a long time. And then this lovely Libelud and, is it an Asmodee? This release gave it lavish sort of production values, really enhanced that original artwork, and turned it into a real mass market game where previously it was a little bit of a niche. It's the right sort of weight for the Spiel des Jahres. I don't know quite how they feel about cooperative games, but Hanabi has won it previously, a cooperative game. So really, it's surprising to see that it didn't even get a recommendation, even though it has won other awards. So Mysterium tends to have done quite well with the French juries. So it's had a silver award from Trick Track, which is a French website about board games that's very popular. It's also won the Jeu de l'année, the Game of the Year award from As d'Or, which is the major sort of French board game award. I'm trying my best with these pronunciations, you'll have to forgive me, but at least I'm having a go. So Mysterium, I think, has been oddly overlooked. I think with this actual, this production, particularly the Mysterium production, as opposed to the Ukrainian and Polish versions, the rules were a little bit overworked, you know, and they tried to fix a few problems that maybe didn't need fixing, or if they did need fixing, I'm not sure they found the right approach. So perhaps they overcomplicated things, and that could have been one of the things that knocked it. Or otherwise, perhaps it's the spooky sort of theme. It's not like German families are averse to ghost-themed games. A lot of the children games seem to be based around haunted castles and things like this. But this is a more adult, spooky sort of game about murder and seances. Perhaps that just takes it slightly out of that family sort of field. Mysterium is a clever combination of the games Dixit and Cluedo. This cooperative game sees all players work as a team. One player plays as a silent ghost, giving dreamlike cards representing visions to their teammates. These teammates play as psychics and collaboratively try and interpret the ghost's cryptic messages in order to establish the exact nature of the ghost's murder. Who was the culprit? Where did it happen? And what was the murder weapon? Number 6 on my list is Dice Town, a game by Bruno Catala. Now this one really hasn't won any sort of award. It's right up the Spiel des Jahres street. Simple, effective, looks great, plays in a quick amount of time, great for families. It won the Lys Grand Public Award, which is a French-speaking award from Quebec. But that's about all. I think Dice Town would have been a shoo-in for at least a recommendation with the Spiel des Jahres, but apparently not. In Dice Town, players simultaneously roll poker dice in noisy plastic cups, slamming them down on the table to reveal their results. They can pay money to re-roll dice, and once all results are revealed, the player with the most of each dice result claims an action related to various locations on the Wild West Dice Town board. Rolling the most 9s allows you to visit the gold mine, claiming nuggets which will net you victory points. The player with most 10s robs the bank. Most jacks awards you special ability or scoring cards from the general store. Most queens allows you to steal from other players in the saloon. Most kings awards you the sheriff's badge, and from here on you decide ties, and you're welcome to accept bribes from the other players. The overall best poker hand wins point-scoring landscape cards, and any player who has none of these locations still gets a bonus from Dr. Badluck. After several rounds, the player with the most points from the cards, the gold nuggets and the money wins the game. Now, Sushi Go has been through a few different versions, and actually Sushi Go is designed by Phil Walker Harding, who is the designer of Emotep, which is one of the contenders for this year's Spiel des Jahres award. But Sushi Go has become a staple of many gamers' libraries. It's a real simple introductory card drafting game that's a real good lead on for things like Seven Wonders and stuff like that. In fact, I believe it was inspired by Seven Wonders, just made much more simple. It sold loads and loads of copies as far as I can tell. This is the original edition, but there was a later Game Right edition that came in a tin that was very, very successful. Now, the German version of Sushi Go, they did something a little bit odd, and this was from Zoc, which is one of my very favourite publishers. So they went with this weird, slightly gross artwork, which I really, really enjoy, but perhaps that might be where this has fallen down. So we've gone from sort of super cute to really quite disturbing sort of pictures of melting pudding faces and little fat faces and sushi that looks terrified to be eaten. It's not a pretty game. I think it's quite funny, the German version, but I wonder whether that's part of what's killed its appeal. It's good to see that it was recognised again in the Australian Board Game Awards, where it won the main award there. It was also recognised as Best Card Game at the UK Games Expo Awards, which it's the first time I've mentioned those particular awards, but that's something that's given out each year and is growing in stature as more of these awards are given out and the UK Games Expo grows. I believe it was also, let me have a look at my sheet, yes, it won the Best Card Game Award for the Origins Award, Origins being one of the big US board game conventions. But again, not even a nod from the Spiel des Jahres jury. In Sushi Go, players have a hand of cards representing different types of Japanese food. They select one card to keep and they pass the others to a neighbouring player so that the dishes rotate around the table just like dishes in a sushi restaurant. Gradually, each player is going to build up a collection of cards on the table in front of them, and at the end of the round, they score these sets of cards according to different criteria. These vary depending on the different cards that are collected. Now, Letter Tycoon, to be fair, hasn't had a German release yet, so it's not actually eligible for the awards, which might explain why it hasn't had one. But the Spiel des Jahres awards don't tend to recognise small publishers, first-time publishers, Kickstarter outfits, that sort of thing. This game is, it's ideal for an award like Spiel des Jahres. It's perfect in terms of its weight, its duration, its accessibility. And so I was really pleased to see that it has won an award, which is the Mensa Select Award. So Mensa Select Award is selected by members of Mensa, clearly the organisation for extremely intelligent or extremely high IQ individuals. And they've chosen this game as one of their games of the year in 2015. So I'm glad to see that. I hope when it gets a German release, we get to see this game explode, and it should be everywhere. This is a fantastic alternative to Scrabble. It's got a little bit of economics in it. Wonderful game. Should be on the Spiel des Jahres radar. We'll see when it gets its German release. In Letter Tycoon, players have a hand of cards, each representing a letter of the alphabet. On their turn, they use these letters to make a word, which will generate them coins depending on the length of the word. These coins are subsequently used to buy patents, which are unique tiles relating to each letter of the alphabet. From here on, whenever another player chooses to use the patented letter, the owner of the patent will claim additional coins from the bank. Some patents also offer special abilities which allow the players to break the rules in some way, enabling them to create even higher scoring words. When one player has purchased a set target number of patents, the game ends, and players work out their total worth in coins and patents. The wealthiest player is the winner. Formula D came out in 2008. Now, its original version was way back in 1991, and that was a game called Formula Day. So I was expecting, when I looked back at the old annals of Spiel des Jahres, to find a recommendation somewhere around there in the early 90s. There can't have been that many great games around then. That was not the golden era of gaming that we're in now, and yet Formula D was around, and Formula D is still a fantastic game to this day. Yet, there's no sign of any sort of nomination, and it's perfect for the award. It's the right sort of weight. It's perhaps a little bit long, but that didn't seem to be such an issue in the 90s. It's ideal for families. Its theme works really, really well. It didn't. The only award that I can see that it's won of any note is the Ludoteca Ideal. I think that is. It's the Italian Board Game of the Year award, which it won in 2009. So I'm glad to see that Formula D won something, but I really think it should have been picked up by the Spiel des Jahres. I think that's a potential winner. Certainly in 1991. What were they thinking? Formula D is a roll and move game. That is, players roll dice and move a corresponding number of spaces on the racetrack. But the clever twist is that players start off rolling a 4-sided die. They're in first gear. They move on to a 6-sided die in second gear, 8-sided die for third gear, 12-sided die for fourth, 20-sided for fifth, and a massive 30-sided die for sixth gear. They can't just bomb around the track at maximum speed, however, because each corner of the track has an allocated section where each car must land. If cars bypass these sections by driving at reckless speed, their car starts to deteriorate, losing tyres, brakes, engine parts, etc., which all essentially constitute hit points. When a car runs out of hit points, it's eliminated. The first car to cross the finish line wins the game. And now, with number 2 and number 1, we're onto some real oddities that I think I can't really believe that these things haven't been noticed by the jury. So the first one is Heckmeck, or Picamino. This is in the expansion box. I haven't got the original box anymore, but this is Rainer Knizia's classic dice game. I think Rainer Knizia has several masterpieces, but this is right up there. And yet, Picamino, I can't see any awards won by this game at all when I'm looking online. Now, I'm sure that that's just I haven't done enough research, and there must be something for this game because it's a classic already. Released in 2005, still constantly in print, new expansion last year, and it's great for families. It's accessible. It's perfect for the Spiel des Jahres, yet completely overlooked. In Picamino, players attempt to claim worms from a so-called grill, which represent points at the end of the game. On a player's turn, they roll 8 dice and set aside all dice showing a single matching result. They can then choose to re-roll and repeat, or claim a worm from the grill showing a number equal to their total of the set-aside dice. However, in order to claim a tile, the player must have set aside at least one worm result. If a corresponding tile is not present on the grill, players may be able to steal such a tile from an opponent. The game has a tricky push-your-luck aspect, as players cannot set aside dice showing the same result as other dice that they've already set aside. Hence, players who re-roll too many times may score big or may go bust. Once all worms are claimed from the grill, the player with the most points wins. Now, it's beggars belief that this hasn't had even a recommendation, let alone a nomination. I can sort of understand why it might not win, because it's maybe a little bit too complex and not quite complex enough for the Kenner Spiel des Jahres, the Connoisseurs Award, and yet Takenoko it came out in 2011 with very little buzz. It crept up. It's had that massive, beautiful collector's edition. It's still in print. It's still extremely popular. There are very few games as attractive as this one. It's great for families. It pulls in players all around. You know, it's so cute. You'd think it would be turning off some of the more macho sort of gamers, but no. Everybody's happy to have a go. Everyone likes the little gardener and the little panda and growing the bamboo. It's so tactile, and yet this game has only really managed to win any awards in France and the French-speaking world. So it won the French award, Jeu de l'année. That's the As d'Or award. The designer is French, Antoine Bauza. It won the French-speaking award in Quebec, the Lycée Grand Public. It did win the Games Magazine Family Game of the Year, which is a US award in 2013. I think this had a slightly unfortunate start in Germany in that its release was delayed for several years, so it came out 2011, but only in 2014 in Germany, by which time perhaps its moment had passed in the terms of the jury's eyes, and so it never got that nod that it rightly deserves. In Takenoko, players place tiles building a beautiful Japanese garden. The garden is home to an antagonistic gardener and panda double act. No player owns either of these characters, but all players have the opportunity to activate them on their own turn. The gardener causes bamboo to grow. The panda eats bamboo. Players attempt to complete 3 different types of objectives throughout the game. Gardener objectives require certain quantities of bamboo to be present in the garden. Panda objectives require the panda to have eaten certain types of bamboo. And plot objectives require the tiles to be placed in certain patterns. Throughout the game, players inadvertently help or hinder each other in achieving their secret objectives, and at the end of the game, the player with the most points wins. So, those are my 10 overlooked Spiel des Jahres games of the year, and things that really should have got a recommendation but didn't. I'm going to go on to look at some other games that did get a nod from the Spiel des Jahres jury over my next few videos. I'm Adam in Wales. If you want to follow my YouTube channel, please subscribe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at BoardGameWales, and on BoardGameGeek, I'm Adam78. Thank you very much for watching. All the best.